Welcome to the 42nd Annual Tostitos Fiesta Bowl Media Hotel. I'm Warren Williamson with Oregon Duck Football News, joined by beat writer Gary Horowitz, who follows the Ducks for the Statesman Journal in Salem. Gary, a lot of storylines this week. I think none other bigger than the elephant that's been in the room is Chip Kelly. Did we find out anything this week about Chip and maybe what his ambitions might be going to the NFL?
Well, he did talk about his future a little bit today when he guaranteed that he would be at the game tomorrow night to coach the Ducks. I don't think he'd let anything let anything out, so to speak. He certainly is going to get a lot of attention from NFL teams. There's already been a report that he's the leading candidate for the Cleveland Browns. There's 7 NFL openings. He seems to have NFL aspirations. He almost went with Tampa Bay last January after the Rose Bowl. So I think if it's the right situation, he may jump. He will likely jump, I think, but he's not going to let us know anything about that, certainly not before the Fiesta Bowl. And I doubt that he's really been in contact with teams at this point.
He's certainly held the company line earlier in the week. We've had a chance to talk to Chip several times. The question has certainly been asked, but he holds the company line and says, look, I'm just thinking about the Fiesta Bowl. That's what I'm coaching. And he hasn't said anything other than that. But experience tells us once the game is over on Friday, the team charter heads back to Eugene, it's likely he won't be on it. That's my personal feeling.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. And you talk to his players, they're okay either way. I mean, they're hearing these questions. They realize they may lose their coach, but the feeling amongst them is, look, he's done a great job. He's built the program up to where it wasn't a good place before with Mike Bellotti. It's much bigger now. Right. They feel that he deserves a lot of credit for them, and he needs to do what's best for him. And they believe the brand, so to speak, is in such a good place right now that that's just going to continue if he leaves and whoever would be the next coach.
Before we jump into the game, that's actually a good point, is where would this program be if Chip leaves? We've heard very good words from some of the assistant coaches that the brand is in good shape for next year if he jumps.
I think it is, and what I'm hearing, and it wouldn't surprise me if offense scorer Mark Helfrich takes over.
Sure.
That's what they did last time with Chip Kelly. He's the offensive coordinator, sort of a coach in waiting. They announced a coach in waiting with Chip Kelly, as a matter of fact. I don't think they're going to do that with Mark. It's a different time. It's a different position. But he's been there a while, and what I would like with Mark is there's such continuity with that Oregon assistant coaching staff. Some of them have been there, Aliotti and Gary Campbell and Don Pelham. They've been there for so long. That's unique in college football. You just don't see that very much. That's a reason for their success, and that's why I think they might go to Mark Helfrich, sort of keep it in-house and keep it rolling.
And one final point for the fans is Chip did say 2 days ago that as soon as this game was over, he and his coaching staff were back out on the road doing some recruiting. Take that as you will, but we don't know exactly what that means. But he did say he was going to hit the road and do some recruiting.
You know, the truth is he doesn't talk about the future with us. No. I don't think he talks about with his players. He might love it at Oregon. He seems to like it. 4 BCS games in a row, 45-7 record. He's got it going here. He's making, what, $3.5 million a year?
He is.
He could probably stay here a long time. There's no guarantee of any kind of longevity in the NFL. Maybe he stays. I mean, that would seem like a surprise, but maybe we should think that a little bit more sometimes.
You had you brought up some interesting points earlier today. Here on campus, there's been a lot of storylines this week. What are some of the other things that have jumped out at you?
Well, you know, Colin Klein, the Kansas State quarterback, sometimes he's compared to Tim Tebow with his devout religious faith and the Christian and the Christianity. He's a married man. He didn't kiss his wife until their wedding day. And, you know, talking to Kansas State players, he's just the genuine oracle. They love this guy. He's a big reason for their turnaround. 3 or 4 years ago, Kansas State was struggling to make it 500. So I think his run to the Heisman Trophy, he was front runner until they lost to Baylor. He finished 3rd. He's an excellent player. He's got Chris Harper, the wide receiver, the former quarterback turned wide receiver from Oregon back in 2008. Those have been some of the storylines with Kansas State, I think, and sort of, you know, and the idea that can Kansas State contain the speed of Oregon? That seems to be the biggest question mark going into this game, and many people don't think so.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the game, the Chris Harper storyline was one of the biggest storylines on media day, and then when we met him several days ago, most of the Oregon contingent was around him a lot. He seems to like Kansas State. He's certainly done well. it's certainly a good opportunity for him to jump to the next level as a wide receiver. But one of the rumors that we put to bed was why he left Oregon.
Right, and I even talked to him about it. I wasn't 100% sure why. I thought he wanted to play quarterback. In fact, that's what Chip Kelly said before they left Eugene. He thought, well, he wanted to be a quarterback, so he left. And he said he could have played wide receiver here. But Chris says he left because he wanted to be closer to home. I believe he's from Omaha, and he was homesick, and he ended up going back to Kansas State. Never played quarterback for Kansas State, and he's turned into a all Big 12 receiver. And like you mentioned, he's got good size. The leading receiver, he might get a look in the NFL. He's certainly a great athlete.
Sure. Some really good matchups in this football game. Let's talk about that. We talked about Colin Klein. We all know what he can do. He's certainly going to run the ball. There's no question about that. But can that defense hold up in space against the fast athletes of Oregon?
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention about Colin Klein, to me, he doesn't quite pass the eye test. I don't know what you've seen of him. I've watched him. He sort of looks like a tight end. Oregon's played against some big quarterbacks, Terrell Pryor, Cam Newton. They did pretty well against Cam Newton, actually. I just think, if they gang tackle him, they're going to be in pretty good shape. If they force Klein to throw, that's very advantageous for Oregon. As far as the speed that you mentioned, I think Kansas State's going to struggle.
Yeah.
I just think that they haven't seen a team like this. The closest team that would to Oregon that they have played is Baylor, and they lost by 4 touchdowns to Baylor. Now I don't think that's going to happen necessarily, but that's a team fast-paced, tempo. Lake Seastrunk, interestingly enough, former Duck had a huge game against Kansas State, so that's a little bit of a red flag if you're a Kansas State fan.
And not only did they lose by 4 touchdowns, they also allowed Baylor to put up almost 600 yards of offense, and that's a lot. And certainly Oregon has that capability with their run game and their pass game. One of the other storylines that I've been hearing, which has been interesting, a lot of the Kansas State people seem to keep their eye on Marcus Mariota, how far he's come. We were there at Spring Ball earlier this year. He has really come a long way, hasn't he?
And he's such a humble, good-natured young man. What's Kenyon Barner say? He's got that Hawaiian cool going for him, just unflappable.
The cool breeze.
Cool breeze, there you go. And he has played exceptionally well for a redshirt freshman, first time to play quarterback for the Ducks. He sat out last year, learned a lot. Maybe Darren Thomas thought when he left a year early, maybe he wouldn't have won the job this coming year. I mean, I think he has a chance to be one of the great quarterbacks in Oregon history, and he's so fast. I mean, he's really, in that read option, if he holds onto the ball, he can go 80 yards. So I think the Ducks are just in fantastic position at quarterback, and I expect him to play well, and he could turn this into a little stage for next year.
Absolutely.
Being in the Heisman Trophy race.
Sure. You're in the Kirk Herbstreit camp, by the way, because Kirk said yesterday during the Rose Bowl pregame show that he expects Marcus to have a very big game, and he said the same thing. He expects that the Ducks will just simply outrun and outspeed Kansas State in space.
I thought you were going to say that Kirk Herbstreit and I are in the same camp because we're both former Buckeyes. He played quarterback for Ohio State, and I backed up Archie Griffin, the two-time Heisman Trophy winner. Not right.
I knew you would get that in there.
I had to get that in. But I didn't know that he had said that, but I sort of agree with him on that. I think they're going to struggle. They get their All-American free safety, I think will play, Ty Zimmerman.
Right.
He had 5 picks. That helps them a lot. And, they've been up against some big-time opponents. They beat Oklahoma on the road. So I think Kansas State has a very good team. I mean, let's not discount their chances, but I would be surprised if they won.
2 things I want to end on that came about in this morning's final coach press conference here on campus at the Camelback Inn. One was in a very rare moment of, I think, internal feeling for Chip Kelly. He was asked about the seniors departing from this squad, and he said outwardly in front of the room full of media that he was certainly going to be sad once those uniforms come off. And I thought that was interesting to me because we rarely see that from Chip.
I even wrote about that. I'm working on my advance right now, but that's interesting that you caught that. I thought it was, he really let his guard down there. I think he loves these guys. He's been with them since the start, and he was offensive coordinator for a few years before that. So I feel like he really has a tie and a bond with this team, and they've got great chemistry, and maybe that's why the whole deal about will he go or will he stay, the players that like him, they're in the moment. It's all about win the day. They've totally bought in.
No, and I did catch it. I think a lot of people in the room caught that because, or for those who follow the Ducks throughout the year, we very rarely see those emotions come from Chip. And at one moment, and you have to be aware in these press conferences, you'll see that every once in a while. It's pretty interesting. The second thing I wanted to talk about was Coach Bill Snyder. When comparing both of these football teams, Bill brought up some very interesting notes about Chip and about Oregon, and I thought what he said about the way that Chip has molded this program into one of the premier programs in the country. And what caught my attention about that is that you've got a Bill Snyder who is a legend really in coaching. So,
and he did the same thing at Kansas State. When he took over, they had lost like 26 games in a row or some outrageous streak like that, and they turned into a perennial power for a while. Now he's back for his second stint. When you watch him up there, you know, he's kind of methodical in the way he speaks and sort of monotone a little bit. He seems like a grandfather, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But I think he has all the respect of his players, and they've done extremely well. You know, it's sort of the flash of Oregon and then this conservative Midwest team in Kansas State that's a reflection of their coach. Interesting matchup.
Yeah. So here we are, 24 hours before kickoff. All the hype's been out of the way. All the storylines have been written so far. There's still some left to be written, but quickly, what do you expect tomorrow?
Well, first of all, it'll be tough to leave this weather, man.
Yeah,
this has been
that's
fantastic.
The biggest storyline.
Wow, has this been great.
Yeah.
I expect it to be a sellout crowd. It's going to be electric. It's the only game of the day. So even though both these teams are not where they wanted to be, it looked like they're going to be in the national championship game. Interestingly, they lost on the same day, Oregon in overtime to Stanford and Kansas State to Baylor. But I think it's a matchup that was meant to happen. They were originally going to play a couple of years ago in a home and home. That didn't happen, so they need to play. They've never played before. I think ultimately D'Anthony Thomas, Kenyon Barner, Marcus Mariota, maybe even Josh Huff, who came on at the end of the year. Too much speed, too many offensive weapons for Oregon. I think they win this game 42-27, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I said this early on in the week that these two teams were ranked 1 and 2 in the country in November, so it's only fitting that they do play. Tell people where they can catch up with you, where they can follow you and read your stories.
Well, statesmanjournal.com is where you can find my blogs, my tweets, my videos, and I'm also on Twitter. G. Horowitz is the tagline.
That's it from the campus here at the Camelback Inn in Scottsdale. For Gary Horowitz of the Statesman Journal, I'm Warren Williamson for Oregon Duck Football News. We will see you tomorrow evening in our post-game wrap-up.